Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome back to the deep dive, where we take a monumental stack of complex ideas, articles, research, foundational text, and distill them down to most essential, actionable nuggets of wisdom for you.
Today's deep dive is into a topic that I think arguably defines modern ambition, achieving time-independent financial freedom. We've looked primarily at the philosophies drawn from a prominent figure in technology and investing, best summarized in the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, to sort of reverse engineer the new formula for wealth creation.
And our mission today is to extract the core, actionable principles, we're talking specific knowledge and leverage, that define this approach, and then explore the critical internal mindset required to make that freedom meaningful.
Right. For you, listener, this is about identifying the shortcut to a life where you control your calendar, not the other way around.
Before we jump in, though, we should probably address a critique that always seems to follow these kinds of ideas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the regurgitation argument. Some people will dismiss this philosophy saying the concepts are just chewed takes or that they contain, zero original ideas.
Which is a fair point, to an extent. Wisdom often rhymes across centuries, doesn't it? Whether you're looking at ancient Stoicism or modern economics.
But the value, as the sources clearly articulate, lies in the curation and the utility. I mean, as one observer put it, why should I care whether an idea is original?
Right.
If someone offers me a bunch of true and useful ideas in a single place, in a highly consumable and actionable form, that is immensely valuable. So our focus today is strictly on the utility for you, the learner.
I like that, the utility for the learner.
If these concepts, whether they trace back to Plato or Silicon Valley, can be combined to make you wealthier and happier, then we're going to spend the next half hour or so dissecting them in detail.
Agreed. So let's start with the fundamental definition, because if we're going to pursue wealth, we really need to know what we're actually chasing. The sources define true wealth not as piles of cash, but as freedom.
Exactly. Money is just a tool. It's a very useful tool that solves money problems. But true freedom, that goes way beyond a salary.
So what is it then?
It is fundamentally about the ability to control your own time. I mean, that's your most finite resource.
The only one you can't get more.
The only one. True freedom means you are not bound by a boss, a required uniform, or some externally imposed schedule. It means you have retiring by stopping the sacrifice of today for an imaginary tomorrow.
That's a powerful way to put it.
It is. If you're constantly having to check permission boxes to live your life, where to be, what to wear, how long your lunch break is, you are simply not a free or truly rich person. It doesn't matter what the number on your paycheck says.
That immediately puts a wrench in the entire traditional model of employment. It really gets to the core principle driving this whole system, which is the sort of harsh truth that you're not going to get rich renting out your time.
That's the one. Renting your time is an industrial age relic. It comes from a time when your output was easily measured by, hours of input on an assembly line.
How many widgets you made per hour.
Precisely. But the sources argue that for modern knowledge workers, that model is fundamentally flawed, and it's capped.
Okay, so if the 9 to 5 is capped, what's the alternative model? How are we supposed to operate?
The alternative is to function like an athlete. Machines should work 9 to 5, but knowledge workers have to operate differently.
Train, sprint, rest.
You train, you sprint, you rest, and you reassess. You work in these bursts of intense, high-quality focus, and that has to be followed by necessary recovery and reflection. Your output isn't judged by the clock anymore. It's based entirely on the quality of the unique contribution you're making.
That sounds great philosophically, but how does the modern economy actually support this shift? It seems like most of the world is still stuck in that industrial age model.
Well, the information revolution is the engine. It's creating what the sources call the atomization of the firm.
Atomization. Unpack that for us.
Large corporations are, in essence, being unbundled. Technology makes it cheaper and easier than ever to communicate, to connect, and to cooperate globally. This allows individuals to work for themselves or in these small, agile, specialized teams.
So you're selling your specific knowledge or skills directly to the market.
Exactly. Rather than being managed inside a rigid corporate hierarchy, the middle management layer is becoming less and less necessary.
Okay, so if we can't rent our time and the world is becoming atomized, we need something that provides, nonlinear returns.
Yeah.
This brings us directly to the first major pillar of wealth creation, Specific knowledge.
Yes. Specific knowledge, or SK, is your foundational competitive moat. It's the unique combination of your inherent curiosity, your natural obsessions, what feels like play to you, and the skills you've kind of accidentally accumulated through your unique life experiences.
What's crucial here is the negative definition, right? What it isn't.
That's maybe the most important part. Specific knowledge cannot be trained for, outsourced, or easily automated.
So if you can get a certification for it.
Or if a massive online course teaches it step by step. Or if society can just easily train someone else to do it, think a general accountant or a basic data entry clerk, then you can be replaced.
And your wage will be capped. That's general knowledge.
Exactly. Let's really hammer home that distinction. General knowledge is easy to measure and teach. How to manage a basic spreadsheet, how to perform a routine surgery, or how to follow a specific legal code.
Standardized stuff.
Right, but specific knowledge is hard to measure and hard to train. Think about something like product intuition.
What's that?
It's the ability to instinctively know what features users will actually pay for way before the data proves it. Or think about a master storyteller who can take a huge amount of disparate historical information and synthesize it into a compelling, relevant narrative.
You can't just teach that in a weekend workshop. That skill set is unique.
It's the compounding effect of 10,000 hours spent not following instructions, but following a genuine, deep curiosity.
So how does that compounding actually work? What's the mechanism?
It works because your specific knowledge becomes this kind of proprietary mental software. When you consistently follow your genuine obsession, whether it's obscure 18th century philosophy, complex coding languages, or the history of specific regional architecture, you build a unique library of pattern recognition.
A library that other people just don't have.
They don't have it because they're only following trends or training manuals. And this, over a period of years, makes you an irreplaceable resource. You become the person who sees the solution that nobody else in the room can even perceive.
So SK isn't something you decide to acquire next week. It's a result of sustained, joyful, dedicated effort in an area that genuinely fascinates you. The ultimate sign you've found it is that it feels like play to you but looks like work to others.
Precisely. I mean, if you are playing for 16 hours a day because you genuinely enjoy wrestling with a complex problem, nobody who is merely working for 8 hours and feeling the friction of that labor can possibly compete with you over the long term. This sustained dedication is what creates the asymmetry in results.
The sources offer a great example of this. You have this internal wiring, and you need to match it to the market demand.
Right.
So if someone loves to read, is good with technology, learns quickly, and tends to get bored fast. That combination is, well, it's terrible for a job that requires 20 years of tunnel vision in a stable industry.
Awful. But that exact same combination is perfectly suited for something like venture investing or deep tech analysis.
Why is that?
Because that environment rewards coming up to speed quickly on new, disparate technologies. It rewards making rapid-fire judgments, and it embraces boredom by letting you move on to the next thing. The initial psychological friction is actually a feature, not a bug.
That observation leads directly to the core maxim for achieving this kind of non-competitive wealth. Escape competition through authenticity.
No one can compete with you on being you. It sounds a bit like a platitude, but it's a profound business strategy. You are the only person who has lived your specific life, accumulated your specific experiences, and paired them with your specific genetic proclivities. That combination, once you figure out how to apply it, is inherently defensible.
Okay, but to turn that authenticity into wealth,
Yeah.
we have to talk about accountability, don't we?
Absolutely. This is the bridge. You must be willing to take business risks and embrace accountability under your own name.
Which is scary for most people.
It's terrifying. People often try to hide behind large corporations because it shields them from risk. But by taking those risks, putting your name on the work, and being directly accountable for the outcome, good or bad, you build a unique personal brand and a reputation that compounds over time.
And that reputation, over decades, becomes its own form of infinite leverage.
That's it, exactly.
This is a critical point. We saw the anecdote about a successful investor who was warned that discussing philosophy publicly under his own name would end his career.
Right, because it didn't fit the mold. The industry peers said, stick to investing, that's your lane.
But he proceeded.
He did, because he understood that his specific combination of interests, that investing rigor plus philosophical insight, was unique. By embracing the full spectrum of his authentic interests, he found an audience that valued that specific blend and that allowed him to reap the rewards.
So the goal is simple, really. Find the project, the business, or the art form that specifically needs your rare combination of specific knowledge the most.
Yeah, it's the search.
Okay, so once you have that unique, difficult to replicate skill set, you need to amplify it because what good is unique knowledge if it only affects the few hours you can personally dedicate?
It's capped.
To truly achieve time-independent wealth, we need a force multiplier, and that leads us directly to pillar 2, leverage.
Leverage. This is the mechanism that allows for disproportionate results relative to your input. It means doing 1 unit of work and seeing 1,000 or 1,000,000 or even 1 billion units of output.
And this is why excellence in judgment becomes so critical in the modern age, right? Small differences in judgment and capability are highly, highly amplified by leverage.
Exactly. Being at the extreme in your art is no longer optional, it's a requirement. If you are working in an environment with infinite leverage, a marginal improvement in your decision-making, let's say being 85% right instead of 80% right, that little difference is magnified millions of times over the lifespan of that leveraged resource.
And that's what generates exponential wealth.
That's the whole game.
The sources break leverage down into 3 distinct types, starting with the traditional oldest forms.
Right. The first is labor leverage. This is just people working for you. It's the oldest structure, the boss, the manager, the employer.
And it has its limits.
Oh, it's very limited. Its effectiveness is capped because it introduces tremendous management complexity, delegation issues, and the famous principal agent problem.
We should probably clarify that for the listener. What is the principal agent problem in simple terms?
It's the inherent difficulty in making sure that the employees, the agents, act perfectly in the best financial and long-term interest of the owner, the principal.
Their incentives aren't perfectly aligned.
Never. Agents often prioritize their own short-term comfort or stability, while the principal has to prioritize risk and maximal returns. The sources emphasize that the only way to really mitigate this is to turn the agents into principals by closely tying their compensation to the value created.
So giving them equity or ownership.
That's the only real solution.
Okay, so labor leverage is messy. What's next?
The second type is capital leverage. This is money working for you. So investing, borrowing, or raising funds to deploy massive resources like building a factory or buying up real estate.
This is a lot more powerful than labor.
Far stronger. Capital leverage is much stronger than labor leverage because money doesn't need management meetings or performance reviews. It just works.
But it has its own barrier to entry.
A huge one. It requires a tremendous amount of trust and skill. You need others, banks, investors, shareholders, to trust your judgment enough to give you their capital to deploy. This is why building that reputation for integrity, like we talked about, is so critical. Capital flows to where it is treated best, meaning where the judgment is soundest.
And this leads us to the modern key, the one that has completely changed the game. The democratic, scalable force. Permissionless leverage.
This is the democratization of wealth creation. It refers primarily to code and media. These are resources where an individual requires no permission from a bank, an employer, or a regulatory body to deploy them.
You don't need to ask anyone for permission to write code or record a video.
Not at all. And the defining feature of permissionless leverage, this is the magic part, is that the products created have no marginal cost of replication. Precisely. If you write a piece of software code once, or you record a powerful idea in a podcast or a video, it costs virtually zero to copy it 1,000,000 times. This is the complete opposite of a traditional factory, where producing the 100th widget costs almost as much as the first.
So with code and media, all the heavy lifting is up front.
It's all in the creation of that first copy, the application of the specific knowledge and judgment. Everything after that is pure profit scaling.
This explains why the ultimate moneymakers today are these powerful personal brands. They've combined their unique specific knowledge, their perspective, their expertise, their style, and they scale it through media and platform leverage.
They write a newsletter, they create a course, they host a massive show. The sources emphasize that this leverage is fundamentally changing how businesses are even structured.
Okay.
Well, historically, only massive corporations could afford to deploy factories, which is capital, or thousands of employees, which is labor. But today, a single individual or a tiny team can build an AI-powered service, which is code, and distribute it globally through media, competing directly with firms 100 times their size.
It's a massive leveling of the playing field.
Yeah.
And this all ties back to the fundamental rule we stated earlier. To get wealthy, you must own equity in a business.
Yes. As an owner, an investor, or a shareholder, you can't just rent out your time as an employee. If you only rent your time, even if your hourly rate is incredibly high, Your income is still mathematically capped at the number of hours you can physically work in a day.
There's a ceiling.
There's a hard ceiling.
Mm.
But if you own equity, you own a piece of the asset that is utilizing leverage. This is best illustrated through what the sources call the career ladder analogy. It's an accountability spectrum that shows how the risk and reward profile shifts as you move up.
Okay, let's walk through the levels, focusing on that crucial shift in risk and ownership.
All right, at the very bottom, you have the laborer. They trade time for money, maybe earning minimum wage, or a fixed hourly salary.
Low accountability.
Very low accountability. Show up, do the assigned task. They're easily replaced because their knowledge is general. They might use tools, which is a form of leverage, but they don't own the results of that leverage. They are renting their time, pure and simple.
Okay, so the next step up.
Next, you move up to the general contractor. This person takes on full accountability for the project's outcome. They might get paid, say, $100,000 for a job that costs them $70,000 to execute.
Meaning they pocket the $30,000 upside. That's their equity.
That's their equity. They gain labor leverage by hiring laborers, but here's the key. If the project fails or runs over budget, they eat the losses. They've moved from just renting their time to renting and managing others' time, with full ownership of the outcome.
The risk is higher, but so is the potential reward.
Much higher. And then finally, at the top, you have the property developer. This individual applies massive capital leverage raising or borrowing millions to buy, renovate, and sell a distressed asset.
Now we're talking about potentially multi-million-dollar profit.
Exactly. Their accountability is at the absolute peak, but crucially, their specific knowledge, their judgment on market timing, regulation, architecture is now the most valuable input. They are no longer trading time at all. They are trading judgment applied to what is essentially infinite leverage.
So the key takeaway is clear. The increase in potential profit is directly tied to the increase in accountability, risk, and the specific nature of the knowledge and leverage being applied.
You have to ruthlessly shift your career toward ownership and accountability.
And that leads us perfectly into the third critical component we need to discuss, the mastery of judgment. Because if you have infinite leverage at your fingertips, the only thing that matters is how you use it.
This is where we shift focus from the external mechanics of wealth to the internal mechanics of thinking.
The source material states a highly counterintuitive idea, one that pushes back against a lot of cultural norms. It says, judgment is underrated. Hard work is overrated.
That phrase is a lightning rod, isn't it? Especially in a culture that valorizes the 80-hour work week.
Right, the hustle.
But with the availability of infinite leverage code, media, capital, the direction you're heading in matters far, far more than how fast you're moving. A single, correctly applied decision, amplified by a million-user platform, is infinitely more valuable than a decade of hard effort applied in the wrong direction.
So if hard work is overrated, what exactly is judgment and how do we cultivate it?
The definition provided is very elegant. Wisdom applied to external problems is judgment.
And wisdom.
And wisdom is knowing the long-term consequences of your actions. High-level compensation in the modern age, it's paid purely for judgment, not for the physical labor itself.
Can we see the value of judgment in a way that, truly makes sense? Give us a concrete example.
Okay, consider the massive scale of modern corporations or investment funds. If a CEO is steering a $100 billion company and they have marginally better judgment, meaning they're right 85% of the time instead of 75%, that 10% difference in the quality of their decision-making
Applied across $100 billion of assets.
is worth hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. The work itself might just be attending meetings and reading reports, but the value is in the steering, the judgment.
This is the Warren Buffett model, isn't it? The ultimate demonstration of leveraging judgment.
Precisely. Buffett has spent decades building a reputation for impeccable judgment and integrity. Because of this long demonstrated history of being right over and over in the public domain, people will throw infinite capital leverage behind him.
And nobody asks him how hard he works.
As the source notes, nobody asks him that. He might spend a year deciding and a day acting, and that single decision, because it was profound and long-term, lasts for decades. The rest of us waste our time with short-term, low-leverage thinking. He prioritizes profound, patient judgment.
So how do we get better at this? How do we cultivate this profound judgment? The sources suggest clear thinker is a better complement than smart.
It is. Clear thinking means you understand the basics from the ground up, not just memorizing advanced concepts. If you truly understand something, you can explain it to a 5-year-old. You should be able to rederive the core principles on the spot.
So if you're just memorizing,
If you're merely memorizing, it's a sure sign that you don't truly grasp the underlying dynamics. You're just pattern matching.
that seems to push against the current educational model, which so often rewards regurgitation.
It does, completely. The advice is to constantly load your head full of robust mental models from diverse fields: evolution, game theory, systems thinking, microeconomics.
And the writings of great investors, like Charlie Munger or Nassim Taleb.
Exactly. These models give you principles that move you beyond what's called the lousy way of thinking, which is simple memory prediction. X happened in the past, so it will happen again. You need principles to understand why things happen, not just that they happen.
Let's focus on one of those powerful mental models, the inversion principle.
The inversion principle, popularized by Munger, is all about flipping the problem on its head. So instead of trying to determine what complex steps will lead to success, you eliminate what will lead to failure.
So not how do I win, but how do I not lose?
That's it. Success, particularly in these highly leveraged fields, is often less about moments of brilliance and more about simply avoiding major mistakes or fatal judgments. So instead of asking, how do I make this project succeed, you ask, what are all the ways this project could absolutely fail, and how do I avoid every single one of them?
That's a fundamentally risk-mitigating approach. It makes a lot of sense when you have infinite leverage, because a mistake is magnified just as much as a success.
Absolutely. When your downside is a small loss, but your upside is enormous, which is the nature of venture investing or scaling media, preventing that major fatal failure is paramount.
Good judgment also requires dedicated mental space. The sources are very emphatic about the importance of cultivating time for clear thinking.
This is crucial, and it's something our culture completely ignores. It is necessary to schedule empty space in your calendar. And the recommendation is rigorous. Take at least 1 day a week, preferably 2, to just be bored, to be unstructured, to be offline.
Be bored.
Yes, great ideas only come when you are not rushed, not stressed, and not busy filling your mind with constant, immediate inputs. You need that vacuum for novel connections to form in your brain.
And when we're faced with a massive life decision, something that's going to lock us in for years, the sources offer a brutal but really efficient heuristic.
If you cannot decide, the answer is no. Modern society just overloads us with options: careers, romantic partners, cities, investments. If you find yourself building a massive pro-con spreadsheet for a long-lived decision, one that's going to define the next 5 to 20 years of your life,
You're trying to talk yourself into something.
you're trying to rationalize something that you inherently doubt. For those big decisions, you must achieve near certainty before saying yes, because the opportunity cost of committing to a mediocre path is catastrophic.
That is a very high bar for commitment. And there's a related heuristic for when choices seem equal, a way to counter our natural cognitive biases.
The run-uphill heuristic. If you're faced with 2 choices that appear equally attractive or sensible, take the path that is more difficult and painful in the short term.
Why?
Because your brain is wired by evolution to overvalue short-term comfort and push pain further out into the future. By definition, if 2 paths are equally rewarding in the long term, and one requires more short-term struggle, like choosing the harder subject to study or starting a new fitness regimen, or reading a confusing but important book, that painful path usually accrues a superior, compounded long-term gain, precisely because most people will avoid it.
It's forcing yourself to pay the interest now to get the principal later.
Exactly. And this constant cultivation of judgment depends heavily on lifelong learning. The sources suggest that reading foundational texts in science, math, and philosophy for just 1 hour per day can put you at the upper echelon of human success within 7 years.
We live in the age of Alexandria.
We do. All of human knowledge is at your fingertips, and leveraging that knowledge is the ultimate force multiplier.
But the instruction here isn't just about reading volume, is it? It's about comprehension.
It's the difference between collecting books and absorbing wisdom. The value is not in completeness, it's in understanding. The advice is to focus on rereading the best 100 books, the foundational texts, over and over again until the knowledge is truly absorbed into your thinking process, rather than just chasing the latest releases. You read to satisfy genuine intellectual curiosity, not to signal intelligence or follow a list.
Okay, so we've established the external game: specific knowledge, leverage, and judgment. But the sources are crystal clear that mastering all of that means absolutely nothing if you haven't mastered the internal game, the pursuit of happiness and peace.
The 3 big goals: wealth, health, and happiness are all, according to the sources, skills that can be learned. But wealth does not guarantee happiness. In fact, seeking it purely externally often guarantees the exact opposite.
Why is that? Why does achieving an external goal so often fail to deliver sustained happiness?
It's a biological reason. It's called hedonic adaptation, the brain's evolutionary mechanism for maintaining baseline stability. The fundamental delusion is believing that something external, whether it's $1 million, a prestigious title, or a specific relationship, will make you happy forever.
It never does.
It never does. The brain quickly adapts to the new stimuli. A year later, the new car or the new salary is just the new normal, and you are right back to zero, seeking the next desire. You're on the hedonic treadmill.
And this leads to the core philosophical realization about desire itself.
Desire is a contract that you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want.
Wow.
Desire creates a state of deficiency. Happiness, in this philosophy, is defined as what is left when you remove the feeling that something is missing in your life. The neutral state, the absence of education, the absence of want, that is the perfected state, the state of the contented child.
So if desire is suffering, a key part of the internal game is choosing the right objectives to pursue in the first place. We have the wealth creation game versus the status game.
And the sources draw a very sharp contrast between the two.
What's the difference?
Wealth creation is explicitly described as a positive-sum game. We are all baking the pie together. We are trying to create goods and services that elevate everyone's life, trying to make the pie as big as possible. When you succeed at wealth creation, you usually make someone else's life better. They get the product they need, the service they want.
It's cooperative. But status is the opposite.
Status is a zero-sum hierarchical old game. We've been playing it since monkey tribes established dominance hierarchies. To win at status, you have to climb a ladder, which inherently means putting someone else down or making them feel inferior or demonstrating your superiority over them.
There's a winner and a loser.
Always. And the problem with status games is that they naturally breed anger, combativeness, and resentment. They make you a miserable person regardless of your position in the hierarchy.
The sources argue that you should ruthlessly avoid status games in your life.
And they suggest a provocative interpretation, that many people who publicly attack wealth creation or success are often, secretly, just playing a status game. They're seeking to raise their own social ranking by tearing down those who focused on positive-sum creation.
So wealth is based on assets and creation. Status is based on hierarchy and signaling.
And you should always choose creation.
The ultimate internal goal, then, once external freedom is secured through wealth, is peace. But the peace we're seeking is not the simple, maybe impossible peace of mind.
No. Peace of mind is trying to resolve all the external, unlimited problems in the world, which is a fool's errand. The peace we seek is peace from mind. It is liberation from the constant, uncontrollable internal chatter.
The sources articulate the modern struggle for this peace as being uniquely difficult, because we're up against forces specifically designed to hijack our attention and our emotions.
That's absolutely right. I mean, we are running one of the greatest mental health experiments in history, where armies of behavioral scientists, engineers, and marketers are weaponizing abundance.
Weaponizing abundance.
They use highly optimized systems to hook us on junk food, clickbait, and social media validation. If you fall for the system, the constant stimulation, your brain will be fundamentally warped towards anxiety and reactive thinking.
The proposed survival mechanism is to become a kind of ascetic, retreating from all that constant societal stimulation.
An ascetic in the modern sense just means turning off the source of the programming. Society, with its endless demands, comparisons, and status games, is literally in your phone, in your pocket, constantly socializing you and manipulating your desires. The only viable solution is to create dedicated, unscheduled gaps in your life to retreat from the digital noise.
And this is where the practice of meditation comes in, specifically described as the art of doing nothing. It's not about achieving some external calm, but about facing the internal chaos.
The practice is deceptively simple. You sit comfortably, you close your eyes, and you let whatever happens happen. No effort, no fighting the thoughts. The central idea is that as we go through life, we accumulate all this stuff. Built-up preferences, judgments, fears, and unresolved issues which are stored in the subconscious.
Like a massive inbox of old, unread emails.
Dating back to childhood, that's a perfect analogy, and when you sit in stillness, what happens?
Inbox opens.
It does. When you remove the constant external stimuli, the distraction, the uncontrollable mad creature, the monkey mind begins to run, these unresolved issues bubble up to the surface. You are, in essence, conducting self-therapy, listening to the backlog of your own unprocessed life.
And the claim is that if you do this consistently,
That mental inbox will eventually clear, and awareness alone will create a crucial separation from your mind, which is the ultimate liberation. You observe the thoughts without being the thoughts.
and that separation brings peace, which they equate to happiness at rest. As the source states, if you're a peaceful person, anything you do will be a happy activity.
This is the final frontier. Wealth buys you the freedom to choose your external activities. Peace gives you the capacity to actually enjoy them, regardless of their outcome.
Finally, let's detail some of the practical habits or hacks for maintaining this internal state, because it can't just be about grand philosophical ideals. It has to be lived.
Okay. Number one is prioritizing physical, mental, and spiritual health above all else. This isn't optional. This is the operating system for everything else in your life. Second, avoiding conflict is paramount.
That's a big one.
It is. If you can't see yourself happily working with someone for life, don't work with them for a day. Conflict is just an energy sink that fuels the status game and completely destroys peace.
And the sources offer a simple, powerful hack for minor daily annoyances, a way to train the brain toward instantaneous acceptance.
The what is the positive of this situation hack. When a minor annoyance happens, a flat tire, you spill coffee, you're late for a meeting, your brain instantly generates a negative stress-inducing reaction. You have to mentally interrupt that reaction by asking, what is the unexpected benefit here?
Okay, give me an example. You're late for a meeting. What's the positive?
Great, you get an extra 15 minutes of silent drive time to think. And you probably missed the most boring 15 minutes of that meeting anyway.
And it sounds a little trivial, but what's the underlying psychological purpose?
By practicing this consistently with small things, the brain is slowly trained to default to acceptance and gratitude rather than frustration and anger. You are teaching your mind that reality, as it is the only place you can ever start from. Accepting the impermanence and imperfection of the world is the foundation of peace.
Okay, let's bring it all back together for the learner. We've covered a massive amount of ground on how to achieve time-independent wealth and, critically, the internal peace required to enjoy it.
We've established a clear four-part path that moves from self-discovery to external scaling and then finally to internal liberation.
First, be authentic. Find your specific knowledge, that unique combination of skill and curiosity that feels like play to you but looks like incredibly difficult work to others. This is your personal mode.
Second, apply leverage. You must move beyond renting your time and learn to deploy permissionless leverage code and media to scale your specific knowledge without increasing your time input. And fundamentally, you must own equity in what you create.
Third, use judgment. Prioritize making excellent long-term decisions over sheer hard work. Cultivate clear thinking using mental models and the inversion principle. Remember that patience with results but impatience with actions defines success in leverage systems.
And fourth, seek freedom. Recognize that all the wealth and external success is only valuable because it buys you external freedom. And that allows you the time and the energy to focus on the ultimate internal goal. Peace from mind. That means minimizing desires, accepting reality, and ruthlessly avoiding the zero-sum status games that make you angry and miserable.
It all comes down to the ruthless protection of your most valuable asset
Your time.
and the quality of your internal focus.
Indeed. To finish our deep dive, here's a final provocative thought drawn from the core philosophy we've discussed. If life is truly a single-player game, you are born alone, you will die alone, and all your memories and interpretations are uniquely yours alone. How does this reality change your approach to competition, to status, and to the choices you make today? If your goal is ultimate freedom, what is the single, non-essential, stress-inducing activity or obligation you should ruthlessly stop doing right now to protect your time, which is truly all you have?
That forces a beautiful moment of self-reflection. If you can answer that, you've already won the internal game. Thank you for joining us on the Deep Dive.